Hello and welcome to another video from the only source of information that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy today. We're just going to talk about some progress I'm making on the Melchizedek script. I've said that I wasn't going to release any of it until I released all of it because I didn't want to leave myself exposed. You know, if I just come out and blurt out what the punchline is or the main point of the video, then suddenly every religious person who happens upon that video is going to want to debate me. And see, I don't like doing my debating after the fact. I like doing all of my debating in the initial video. So when I put the Melchizedek scripts out, I will have chapter and verse of everything I'm telling you so you can look it up for yourself. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now what the main point is going to be of part 6 of the Melchizedek script, which is going to be about the family life of Jesus. I've already got parts 1 through 4 completed. I've got part 7 completed. 6 is almost completed, and 7 I've got all my notes together, so don't get worried that this is not going to happen this year. I hope to put everything out by October. So the main point that you're going to get out of part 6 is the identity of Jesus' brothers and what they did with their lives. You know, the churches have always taught that Jesus' brothers or his family opposed him until after the resurrection, and that somehow the resurrection convinced them that yes, in fact, Jesus was the Messiah. But if you read the Bible with an open mind, you'll see from the very beginning that Jesus' family knew from the beginning that he was a son of God. And so that should be obvious because, you know, the angel Gabriel came and told Mary, you're going to have a baby. And she said, I haven't had any sex with a man. So now just trust me, this child of yours is going to be the Son of God. And so Mary knew that. She understood it. Joseph understood it. Joseph had enough faith in that he was willing to take Mary into his household and provide for her, because he truly believed that Jesus was the Son of God. And each of the children that was born in that family were told very early on that Jesus was the Son of God. And also the things Jesus did as a child proved that he was the Son of God. So the church teaching that Jesus' brothers and all oppose him, it's just a way of trying to separate the brothers of Jesus from the apostles of Jesus. So, and here's the thing, you know, we know that when Jesus started his ministry, he said he had come down from heaven, and the people around said, well, you couldn't have come down from heaven because we know your mother, your father, we know your brother Joseph, your brother Judas, your brother James, and your brother Simon, and we know your sister Salome, or your sisters. And in fact, it's not an all-inclusive list. The way it's worded, Jesus had a lot of brothers and sisters. And his brothers and sisters' names come up throughout the Bible because when Jesus died, they're the ones that carried on the ministry. But here's the thing, in the very earliest days when the Catholic Church was producing the Bible in Latin, oh, and by the way, yeah, you'll hear the firing range, FEMA's firing range over there. That's nothing to concern yourself with. It's an everyday thing here. But when the Bible was first translated into Latin, you know, Catholics were from other religions. There was this Mithraism, which extolled the virtues of virginity and all that. And so here they had this God-man that was born of a virgin, and they thought they could work their religion into the Bible, which they did very, very effectively. But in order for Mary to be the mother of God, she had to be a virgin forever. In order for Joseph to be the father or the adoptive father of Jesus, he had to quit having sex the minute he met Mary. And so they have this weird doctrinal system for trying to prove that Mary and Joseph never had sex. So you'll see there are verses in the Bible about Jesus having brothers, but the church taught that those were children of Joseph by a wife wife that died before he met Mary, or something. They have a bunch of different ways around that. So anyways, his brothers are named Joseph and Judas, or at least the ones that are named early in the Bible are Joseph and Judas and James and Simon. These names all come up later in the Bible over and over again as disciples of Jesus, and in fact 3 of them are the same as names of his apostles. Even though the Protestant religion teaches that these men really were Jesus' brothers and not sons of Joseph by a previous marriage, they still try to hold out that Jesus had to come from a perfect family that wasn't promiscuous. Well, if you look at the list of Jesus' apostles throughout the Bible, you just take notes on each and every one of them. They oftentimes list who their fathers were. They list them by their last names. Like I think Joseph and Judas are both called Barsabbas. And then there's 2 apostles that are called Iscariot. Judas Iscariot, who's the son of Simon Iscariot, and Simon is also called Simon the leper, Simon the Pharisee, but it's the same guy, I think. And so if you add all of that up and you write down every single thing that you know about every apostle, according to church teachings, Jesus' apostles could not be his brothers. Now here is the main point that I'm going to be getting across in this part 6 of Melchizedek, is that the reason the names don't match up is because although Mary had a child by Holy Spirit, that being Jesus, and Mary obviously had children by Joseph, Mary also seemingly had children by several other men, maybe quite a few men, and Joseph seemingly had children by other women. And when you get to the end of the New Testament, it seems that there were some apostles and disciples who are actually the children between Mary's boyfriends and Joseph's girlfriends. So it's, this teaching that sex is evil and all that. I mean, this is going to be one of the things that the churchgoers are going to just, they're going to be reading scriptures about anybody who looks at a woman is going to hell, that kind of stuff. But the reality is that Jesus was part of a very large extended family. And in fact, when you read the verses about him going to the Passover when he was 12 years old, it says that his parents were a day's journey away before they realized he wasn't there. That's how big the family was. And they say, well, it wasn't just his family. It was his family and his family's associates. But the words that are used are like his immediate family and his extended family. These would be all of his brothers and sisters and cousins. And it also seems to me that somebody who was very active, possibly very active in Jesus' life, was his grandfather. Because there's a lot of verses about the children of a man named James. It could not be the children of James the Apostle or James's brother or James, the writer of the book of James. And so Joseph's father was named James. There was just like the Hebrew word is Jacobo, which means Jacob. James is Jacobau, which is just a Greek version of Jacob. And so you can call them all Jacob or call them all James, but they're all Jacobos, Jacobo. So Joseph's father was Jacobo, and then there's certain apostles who are called the sons of Jacobo. There's also apostles that are called the son of Alphaeus. And like I said, I'll put this all together and, chapter and verse, so you can go look it up for yourself. But there's one thing I don't think I'm going to put in there, but I had to do a little research on it, something I guess I should have done a long time ago. And I did. Years ago, I was told that the lineage of kings, like if you go to David, King David, he had a son that was named Solomon who became the next king. And then Solomon had, Abijah, or let me see, he's listed here somewhere. No, Solomon had Rehoboam. Rehoboam had Abijah. So we've got this long list of kings in the Old Testament, and it matches like word for word with Joseph's lineage down to Jesus. You know, Jesus' lineage through Joseph. But a lot of names are left out. And so I went and looked, and sure enough, yeah, there's a lot of names left out of Matthew's lineage. But I don't think it really matters too much, because you know that it says like so and so, son of so and so, son of so and so. Well, in the Bible, we do have examples of men that seemingly were called son of their great grandfather. You know, it's like a couple of names are left out simply because they're not important to the story, which may be what Matthew's or. There's two of them, Matthew and Luke. Matthew's lineage is directly through that line of kings, but it leaves out a few of the kings. And the kings it leaves out are, you know, you could look, there's an article on Wikipedia, and it seems to be pretty accurate about which ones are left out and why. But that's just speculation. We just know that Matthew's lineage leaves them out. Now, one of the things I did know is that they have been saying for years that one of the lineages, Matthew's lineage is Joseph, and Mary's lineage is found in Luke. And I thought, well, that makes sense. If you read it, it does sound like one of the lineages is Joseph and one is Luke. But the problem I've always had with that is that when you get to the when you get down to King David, both lineages say that David had a son named Nathan, or at least that we know that David had a son named Nathan. But the lineage of Matthew, it says Nathan, and the other one says Solomon. So that's where it diverges. And so Joseph strictly follows the lineage of kings. And in fact, it seems to me that all along the nation of Israel was keeping track, because they were waiting for a king to come back. And Joseph's father seemingly was like a very important man in the tribe of Judah. So it's like the Israelites had already determined that it would be through Joseph that the king would come. And so we're like, oh, well, no, Jesus was poor, Joseph was poor. No, Joseph wasn't poor. You'll find out when the video comes out. But with Mary, her lineage is through Luke, and it goes through Nathan, who was not a king. But the next man on the list after Nathan is called Mattatha. And I thought, well, you know, Mattatha, even though it's in Greek, it's probably a Greek transliteration of something, and it's pretty similar. It's like there is a Mattatha in the Hebrew Scriptures. And the good thing is that we have this, we can confirm that Mattatha is not part of Nathan's biological family, but very likely was adopted into Nathan's family. In other words, there was a Levite and a woman from the tribe of Levi. They had a child, something happened, and for whatever reason, their child ended up being raised by Nathan. Because before that, it's like, there's no way, in my mind, there's no way that Mary could have been in that lineage. You know, Mary went, there's a part of the Bible where it says that Mary went to visit her cousin Elizabeth. Elizabeth was the mother of John the Baptist, and her husband was Zechariah, I think, and he was a Levite. So Elizabeth and her husband were Levites, meaning that John the Baptist was a Levite, and Mary went to visit, and it says that Mary was her cousin. So I looked that up. You know, if they're cousins, that would make Mary a Levite, but it doesn't even really say that Mary was her cousin. It uses a very specific word, which means a member of the same tribe. So Elizabeth and her husband were members of the tribe of Levi, meaning that Mary was a tribe of Levi, meaning that her lineage could not come through the line of kings. But if you remember, Jesus is called from the tribe of Judah, but he's also called a king and a priest. And so this kind of makes sense. You know, if Mary's lineage was through the tribe of Levi, and a Levite just happened to have been adopted, by Nathan, the son of King David, then that would explain a lot. And so we know that that's the case because there's a book, an ancient Hebrew book, very long. Like if you put it into writing, it's hundreds and hundreds of pages of a real book. But of course back then they were scrolls. So what they would do, they would take this animal hide and they would make a long thing to write on, like our paper, but it's made out of skin. And they would start at the top and start writing and writing and writing. Well, these animal hides wouldn't be exactly the same length. The guys that were writing wouldn't use the same size letters. And so they would get to the end of the hide, and they'd go to the next hide. And they'd go to the next hide, and they'd go to the next hide. And the only way I found out about this is, it's like every time I read the Bible, when you're in Kings, Chronicles, and Samuel, you'll be reading, and all of a sudden, you're in the next book, and everything sounds familiar, because they all overlap. You know, whenever they find these scrolls, it's always separated into 6 pieces or more. But where the pieces are divided is always different. It's like the guy just writes to the end of the thing, goes to the next page, and so the next guy, he does the same thing, but his writing ends in a different spot. So if you go and look, and I can't remember where it is, but I think a couple of the books, Kings, Samuel, and Chronicles, they overlap each other. So you read all the way to the end, and then you go to the next book and you read for like a page or two before you get to new material. You have to read the same pages over again. Well, the reason that's important is because if you line all those up, that's a chronological story, the story of the kings, and so you can see, like at the very beginning, David is a very young man, and I think near the end he dies and is replaced by Solomon, and so Nathan is mentioned very early on. And the son of Nathan, Mattatha, is mentioned later on. So it was a right age. The priest, the Levite, that served David in the temple, and he was a musician as well, that sang song. He prophesied with a harp. You can see that Nathan would be the right age to adopt this priest from back then. And probably I'm not the first guy to find that, but I haven't seen anybody else. You know, I haven't seen anything in writing anywhere where someone tried to explain this. But if you follow that lineage, it's like we're all kind of familiar with who the kings of Israel were. You know, names like Abijah and Solomon. And you get to 2 of them in the line, and they're Shealtiel and Zerubbabel. And strangely enough, both lineages of Jesus, the one through his mother and the one through his father, list Shealtiel and Zerubbabel, who were in the line of kings. Although one became king, I think the other one was the son of that one. It wasn't that they were brothers. And when you get to the lineage in Luke and Matthew, they're not brothers, they're father and son. Shealtiel simply means sown in Babylon, and Zerubbabel means born in Babel, or born in Babylon. And both of these names in the Old Testament are given to these people because they were born after Israel was carted off into captivity, Babylonian captivity. So it may have just been a common thing that people named their kids, or maybe the name was given to them by the Babylonian government, because there were people in the Old Testament that had these 2 names, and Mary's lineage has these 2 names, and Joseph's lineage has these 2 names, but each one, in all 3 of these parts of the Bible, the people that have these names are spoken of in lineages. So in the Old Testament, these people have a father and they have kids. In Matthew's account, they have father, they have kids. In Luke's account, they have father and they have kids. And they're all different. So these are probably, none of these names are the same. It seems to be problematic for the churches. It's not really problematic for me. that these people had this same name, especially when you consider what it means. It was probably just a means of marking time in these lineages. So we could know today that those two people were likely born in Babylon. And we know when that happened, so we can know when these descendants or ancestors of Christ were born. I don't want to just keep rambling on. I think that's basically everything I got to cover, but hopefully that'll hold you over until I can get around to doing some serious Bible videos. But I'm really, really excited about the Melchizedek script, and I am trying to stick to it, even though every day I'm going over and working on my truck a little bit. So hopefully when it's time, everybody knows I get really sick in the fall and can't do anything. So hopefully I'll get this all taken care of, get everything posted on the internet, and before October. All right, love y'all, and as always, if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.